My first guest tonight is a very special friend. I have great admiration I've had for many, many years for this gentleman, and a special visitor to the Tonight Show. Would you welcome Mr. George Burns?
For 3 decades, Johnny Carson commanded late-night television with an ease that made it look effortless. From his desk at The Tonight Show, he became more than just a talk show host. He was the arbiter of stardom, the man whose approval could launch a career overnight. If Carson laughed, a comedian's future was secured. If he didn't, silence could be career-ending. Off-camera, he was guarded, almost mysterious, a man who shielded his true self from the world. On camera, he hid behind charm, wit, and impeccable timing. But every so often, a guest managed to slip past that armor. These weren't just talented entertainers. They were people who touched Johnny at his core, who reminded him why he loved being there every night. They made him laugh without effort, made him surrender control, and in rare instances, even brought him to tears. Carson never revealed it publicly, but those encounters left marks he carried with him. Among the endless parade of stars, 9 stood out above all. Guests who gave him not just television gold, but something deeply personal. When Lucille Ball arrived on set, the entire room shifted. Johnny, normally stiff-backed and watchful, would melt the moment she appeared. Lucy's presence was volcanic. Before she even spoke, the atmosphere was alive. Her booming, reckless laugh cut through his carefully built rhythm, and he welcomed it. For a man obsessed with precision, Lucy was the chaos he secretly loved. She turned commercial breaks into playgrounds, balancing on cables, teasing crew members, or performing pratfalls sharp enough to leave the entire staff doubled over. On air, she transformed interviews into jazz sessions, improvising so wildly that Carson often abandoned his notes, letting her lead while he happily followed. Beyond her comedy, she cared, staying after shows to thank technicians, sign napkins for interns, and encourage nervous staffers. Johnny saw it all, and though he rarely commented, he cherished it. For him, Lucy was joy unfiltered, a reminder that live television should feel dangerous and alive. Bob Hope was another who broke through, but in a different way. With him, Carson didn't need cards or setups. Their chemistry was automatic. Hope delivered jokes like a prizefighter throwing jabs, each one sharp, tested, and unstoppable. Johnny loved that kind of economy. Their banter was like a duel, crisp and relentless, with the audience gasping between punches of laughter. Offstage, Hope was the same. No entourage, just stories of golf games and road tours, always ready with material that could slip into conversation. Carson admired the professionalism. Hope's humor was never cruel, never bitter. He poked fun but left no wounds, exactly the tone Johnny wanted for his show. And just as importantly, he treated the crew with the same respect he gave the cameras, shaking hands, cracking jokes, remembering names. For Carson, it was a mark of true class. Then came Jack Benny, the master of silence. Benny didn't rush. He let the room wait. Johnny, a craftsman of tight timing, leaned forward whenever Benny appeared, because he knew he was about to watch a different kind of art. Benny's pauses were so long they felt unbearable, until the release came and the laugh exploded. It wasn't the punchline, it was the architecture around it, the patience. Carson studied him like a student, knowing he was in the presence of someone who had elevated timing into something almost mystical. Backstage, Benny's meticulousness never faltered, adjusting stools by an inch, trimming words from scripts, fine-tuning beats that others overlooked. Johnny absorbed it all, and every time he slowed his own delivery on air, letting silence breathe, it was his quiet tribute to Benny's genius. When Ella Fitzgerald visited, the studio shifted again. Johnny, usually ready with quips, simply fell silent. Ella didn't command attention with theatrics. She simply sang, her voice effortless, precise, and utterly human. Each phrase was a story, each breath deliberate. Carson was transfixed. For him, her craft represented the highest form of artistry, flawless yet unpretentious. Offstage, Ella's humility elevated her even more. She thanked engineers for clean mixes, praised makeup artists for their light touch, and asked crew members about their families with genuine care. Johnny, who valued kindness toward the unseen just as much as performance, was moved. When she sang, he didn't interrupt or joke. He just listened, grateful that for once, the show wasn't about entertainment. It was about truth. Dean Martin brought the opposite energy. Where Ella was elegance, Dean was chaos, beautiful, intoxicating chaos. He swaggered in with a loosened tie and a drink in hand, instantly dismantling structure. Johnny, who clung to control with most guests, let it go with Dean. Their exchanges were loose, reckless, and hilarious. Stories wandered, punchlines stumbled. But the audience roared because Dean's confidence carried everything. Off camera, he spread mischief with generosity, teasing crew members, toasting the band, pulling everyone into his orbit. For Johnny, Dean was a reminder that imperfection could be more entertaining than polish, that sometimes the best television was the one that refused to behave. Jimmy Stewart brought something rarer, sincerity. He shuffled on stage slowly, speaking softly, stories meandering like front porch conversations. Johnny adjusted, giving Stewart the space to be himself. The moment that defined their bond came when Stewart read a poem about his dog, Bo. The studio fell silent, and Carson, unshakable master of composure, broke down in tears. It was almost unthinkable, but Stewart's honesty cut through. Off stage, Stewart was no different, gentle, humble, kind to everyone he encountered. Johnny treasured that consistency. In a world of egos, Stewart's humility anchored him. George Burns embodied elegance. His humor was clean, deliberate, set with the care of fine glassware. A draw from his cigar, a glance over his glasses, and the room laughed as if on cue. Johnny loved the simplicity, the refinement. Burns treated the crew with the same courtesy, spreading warmth as naturally as he told jokes. Then there was Sammy Davis Jr., a storm of energy and rhythm. He electrified the studio, moving from impressions to song to dance without pause, turning the show into an event. Johnny leaned back, grinning, happy to let Sammy lead. What impressed him most wasn't the flash, but the generosity. Sammy lifted the whole room, from stagehands to interns, making them feel part of the show. Between Burns and Sammy, Johnny saw two sides of show business: timeless dignity and explosive joy. And finally, Betty White. With her, Carson didn't have to brace himself. He knew she could handle anything. Her wit matched his dry humor perfectly, sharp but never cruel. Their banter was play, not competition, and Johnny trusted her completely. Off stage, she radiated kindness. She stayed behind to chat with crew, remembered names and pets, and treated interns with genuine warmth. For Johnny, that mattered as much as the laughs. With Betty, he could take risks, knowing she'd always catch him. Their chemistry wasn't just good television, it was joy. Looking back, Johnny's favorites weren't chosen by fame or celebrity status. They were chosen by something deeper: craft, kindness, honesty, and the ability to create moments that felt alive. Lucille Ball brought chaos wrapped in care. Bob Hope sharpened comedy into a sport. Jack Benny taught the power of silence. Ella Fitzgerald reminded everyone that humility could elevate genius. Dean Martin proved that imperfection could sparkle. Jimmy Stewart revealed that sincerity could outshine comedy. George Burns carried timeless dignity. Sammy Davis Jr. brought uncontainable electricity. And Betty White gave Johnny freedom and warmth. Together, they reassured him that his work wasn't just about jokes or ratings. It was about truth. When the cameras went dark, Johnny didn't count laughs. He held on to those memories. Moments where television transcended performance and became something real. For him, those rare nights justified all the rest. They reminded him why he had stayed behind that desk for 30 years. And for audiences, they remain the reason Johnny Carson isn't remembered just as a host, but as a part of history itself.